Welcome to today's explainer. So, if you've ever lived in an apartment block or a townhouse, you know that keeping the peace, well, it can get a little tricky, right? Today, we're tackling a fascinating and honestly highly relevant challenge for South African residents. We're going to look at exactly how we can successfully balance deeply personal cultural and religious rights with everyone's universal need for a peaceful community. I mean, this touches almost everyone living in a shared space today, and getting it right is an absolute game changer for all of us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. On our agenda today, the reality of shared living, sectional title ownership explained, passing the mirror test, why we must regulate impact and not identity, handling real-world scenarios, and finally, respect, law, and community.
Part 1, the reality of shared living. Think about how incredibly diverse South Africa is. That beautiful diversity doesn't just stop at your front gate. It plays out right inside our residential spaces. Imagine two neighbors. One says, "Hey, this is my culture and religion." The other says, "Well, this is my home and my right to peace." And you know what? Both of those are entirely legitimate, valid concerns. This really sets up the core conflict we face in shared spaces, the need to practice important traditions, like loud worship or a funeral wake, competing directly with a neighbor's very real need for quiet, to sleep, study, or just work from home. So this brings up a foundational question, and it's one that causes a lot of confusion. What exactly do you own when you buy into a sectional title complex? I want you to think about that for a second. There is this huge misconception out there that you just own the walls of your unit and can literally do whatever you want inside them. Actually, scrunch that, it's way more interconnected than that. Part 2, sectional title ownership explained. Let's look at the strict legal reality here. Sectional title ownership means you acquire ownership of your specific section, sure, but it comes permanently attached to shared rights, common property, and some pretty strict legal obligations. According to the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, your individual freedom legally has to coexist with your community responsibilities. You aren't just buying a box to live in, you're buying into a whole collective ecosystem. And because it's a collective ecosystem, just think about everything you're sharing. We're talking about the physical buildings, the land, driveways, security infrastructure, maybe a communal pool. Because all these spaces are shared, what one single resident does inevitably and directly impacts the neighbor next door. That's exactly why collective rules aren't just polite suggestions. They are absolutely crucial to protect everyone. Part 3, passing the mirror test. Now, what's really interesting here is this perspective-shifting question. Would I still support this rule if my neighbor were doing something I personally don't believe in, but the law protects? It's called the mirror test. It forces us to ask if a rule is truly objective, or if we're just basing it on our own personal, subjective preferences. Because a genuinely fair rule doesn't just protect the people we happen to agree with. Think of it this way. Today, it might be something you don't mind at all. But tomorrow, it might be something you really don't like. Fair rules protect everyone consistently. If you want the freedom to hold a large cultural ceremony today, you kind of have to support a rule that reasonably accommodates your neighbor's completely different religious gathering next week. Consistency is literally the anchor of a harmonious community. Part 4, regulate impact, not identity. This is probably the most critical legal distinction we're going to cover today. It is the difference between unlawfully attacking someone's deeply held beliefs and lawfully managing their actual physical conduct. Let's contrast two approaches. A problematic rule might say, no African traditional ceremonies or Christian worship. That's a massive issue because the Constitution fiercely protects religious freedom. But look at a balanced approach. All ceremonies must comply with noise, health, and access rules. See the difference? That totally respects the culture, but it actively manages the behavior. So the crucial point is understanding exactly what you can regulate. Under the SDSMA, a body corporate can address things like unreasonable noise levels, safety risks, health hazards, people blocking access gates, or misusing the common property. This ensures that community protection stays completely neutral. You're not banning a religious gathering. You're just making sure that no gathering blasts amplified speakers into a neighbor's bedroom at midnight. Make sense, right? Part 5. Handling real-world scenarios. Now let's see how these neutral principles actually apply when the rubber meets the road, with complex, real-life situations, like grieving families holding wakes or ritual slaughter. Instead of just banning events, communities should implement a structured protocol. It works in 3 simple phases. Before the event, notify the trustees and sort out parking. During the event, respect the noise limits and keep driveways clear. And after, clean the area thoroughly. It's a compassionate process that protects the family's right to observe their traditions while still maintaining basic community standards. This breaks it down perfectly. Private prayer in a unit, normally you just allow it. Very loud, amplified worship, that definitely can and should be regulated because of the noise impact. What about ritual slaughter? Well, it isn't automatically banned, but it absolutely must comply with broader laws like meat safety regulations, health protocols, and municipal bylaws. The focus is never on whether someone is worshiping, but rather the volume, duration, and legal compliance. Part 6. Respect, Law, and Community. Let's cement the solid legal foundations that make all of this work. Trustees and residents really have to rely on key authorities: the South African Constitution, the STSMA, municipal bylaws, and the Community Schemes Ombud Service, or CSOS, for dispute resolution. These aren't just bureaucratic hurdles. They are the safety nets that ensure rules are enforced fairly and definitely not arbitrarily. I really want you to absorb this quote from our source material. Sectional title does not ask us to give up who we are. It asks us to learn how to live alongside people who are not us. I just love that. A strong, vibrant community isn't one where everyone looks the same or believes the exact same things. It's one where standard, neutral rules protect absolutely everyone fairly. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought for your own complex. If a rule protects your neighbor today, will it protect you tomorrow? As you navigate shared living, I encourage you to approach your community rules with empathy, consistency, and a community-first mindset. Remember, what protects your neighbor's right to peace today is the exact same thing that protects your right to practice your traditions tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and here's to building better, fairer communities.